Alright, hey everyone. I wanted to make a video that I can post on the web store for this new kit that I have coming out. I'll be honest, I've made 3 already and they run over an hour because I've tried to pretty much go over everything. So what I'm going to do is just briefly talk about the kit. I'm going to show the kit, give you some brief info. I'm going to save the details from the other video for a write-up on the website, and I'll link it in the product page with pictures more describing certain key things about it. It's a conversion kit for the Schumacher Mi9. I'm calling it the LCG kit, lower center gravity, because that was what I set out to achieve with this kit. Been working, the concept came into my mind 8 months ago or so, just before the indoor season started, and I've been working on ideas and theories and designs and sourcing parts, because there are parts you're going to need from 2 other brands to accomplish this outside of what I'm going to make. But this video is basically going to be just a brief rundown of it, what it includes. I've got my rebuild in front of me from the Nationals. This is what's left of my Nationals car, and as you can tell just by looking at the chassis, quick look, it's a Schumacher chassis. We kind of know what the contour design looks like, but there's a few changes that were made for my kit. So the 3 things I wanted to accomplish on this was lowering the sway bars down under the arms on the chassis, mainly because taking all that weight and dropping it, I don't know what the actual weight is of all the pieces on a kit, and then what it converts to with what's being used, but it was a significant drop. I mean, we don't even, with this kit, you don't need the bearings that hold the bars in place, so you lose that. The sway bar links, literally these are a fraction of the weight that the stock ones are, so you lose a substantial amount of weight from the bulkhead height down. The other thing I wanted to try was a single bell crank steering. Now, I've never owned a car long enough, or owned a car with single bell crank steer. I did decades ago with one of the old X-Rays, but not on the current setups. And I haven't had like an Automatics or a Mugen, a car that actually worked with single bell crank, to base my own opinion on. So I wanted to try that on this car. And then the other thing I wanted to accomplish was lowering the shocks. The shocks are a substantial amount of weight as well, just in themselves, and I wanted to see how I could lower them, how low I could go. So everything was accomplished. I was able to put the entire package together, and I've been running the prototype car since the end of January or so. It was shortly after 360 put in the new carpet and we got a good groove in. So my main car, just a kit Schumacher, the number I was shooting for was 27 laps, something 27 laps. And I broke into that with the main car, the kit car, and I did, my first weekend doing 27 laps was like, it was a 27:09, an 08, and then an 07. It's still, it's a 27, but in my opinion, it's a slow 27. So it gives me the push to go faster. When I brought this prototype car out with just the steering done, I didn't have the shocks or the sway bars done on it yet. I had the best control testing situation. We had the same layout. I used the same set of tires off of the main car. I used the same motor out of the main car. I used obviously the same gearing. All my electronics are the same, T-Con speed controls, power HD servos, and my batteries, of course, speed zone, they're all the same. So electronics were the same, track layout was the same, I had the same tires, I mounted a brand new twister OG body on. It was the best control situation to test, and first qualifying run with just the steering change was a 2703. And then after that it was like 2702, 2705, 2701. My next mental step was the 28 laps, which I was on pace for, and things just didn't happen, but I knew I was in the right direction. So then I worked on putting the whole package together for myself with the sway bars, and then how I was going to lower the shock mounts, or lower the shocks. Excuse me. So once everything came together, I had my prototype. Like I just said, with the Nationals chassis, I'm rebuilding the car with a fresh chassis. A, because I just want to be sure that my files were correct. I could duplicate it and I didn't like confuse myself with any files or drawings or whatnot. So that's why the National car is getting rebuilt on a fresh up. Plus I wanted pictures. I want to be able to take the pictures for the product page. So I'm going to start with the sway bars. As I said, they're mounted to the chassis. Get my fingers right here. Everything purple is from the Destiny DTY10. When that car came out, I knew that was the servo setup that I was going to be using for the single bell crank. When I started looking around at the other cars to see what I could use for my sway bars and whatnot, this was the route. I could have gone with, you know, the Yokomos or even the Awesomatics or the Mugens, the Awesomatics, but they put the bar up too high. I could go with the Yokomos or the RC Maker ones, which kept the bar low to the chassis, but they kind of stuck it out. I didn't really want to do any of that because I knew I was going to have to really change the chassis design, and I wanted to stay as close to, you know, a stock looking Schumacher chassis as possible, just because it's very identifiable by the chassis design, and as far as the way the chassis works and the flex and whatnot, I understand it very much on how I like things to flex, and how the Schumacher design, just the way everything is, controls the flex very well. Just my theories. So the Destiny sway bars. So it is these purple pieces here, mounted to the chassis. You can see those. And then you have the collars, and then the Destiny sway bars. And they mount underneath the arm. You can see them there. Let that focus, maybe. So everything is under the arm. There's no bearing, like I said. You lose the weight of the bearings, and you just use the sway bar collars. They slide into the Destiny mounts. Really free. I mean, there's no binding on this at all. The bars move freely. That one's a little bit much. You know, the bars move freely. There's no more measuring the link, you know, checking wheel lift to make sure the other one follows. You can deck the bars on your pit board and, you know, tap them, make sure they're flat, and there's no pressure on these. They just ride flat. The sway bar can actually do what it's supposed to do. So I was really happy that I chose Destiny's setup for that. The other thing from them, now we get into the single bell crank steering, this is their servo mount. Just 2 screws. They are pinned, so it won't, you know, tweak out on you on the chassis. And basically now I can just remove the whole steering one shot. It does clear the belt. Like I said, I've been running this for almost 2 months now. This mount exactly, and there's no belt rub marks or anything on that belt. There's about 1.5 millimeters, 2 millimeters clearance. I'd say 1.5 millimeters between the belt and inside of this mount. The bell crank itself is from the Schumacher FT8, the front wheel drive car. And then there is a steering post in here. You can't use the factory ones. They're too tall. So what you use is the short mount from the KF2 and MI6 they used it on. It's still available. It's readily available through Schumacher Direct, or if you're stateside, Discount RC. That's anybody I mentioned during this video is who I use locally for myself. I have no affiliation with them. I just have used them for years with no problem. So I'll always recommend the local guys that treat me, you know, I've had success with. But it's not like I'm getting a kickback or I even have a discount. I'll go into detail on the build-up, write-up of this. I will say in the video there's a couple of key things to keep an eye out for when you do build this. So there's the short steering mount in here, and I used a 2 millimeter spacer to shim it. Now you can shim this height however you want to set your steering links at whatever height or angle you want. When I mount it all up and I take my measurements, the ball stud is about 2 millimeters higher at its center than on the single bell crank than compared to the dual bell crank we get in the kit. So what I did was, and that's with using a 2 millimeter shim here. So what I did was I filed off the little nubs that are on here. They're about 0.5 millimeter. You don't have to. I just did it because I wanted a little bit more wiggle room for finding my bump steer. But because of the height difference, I put 2 millimeters out of my steering arms to kind of keep my angle that I was running at the time the same. That was like a 0. So you can play around with this height. The only thing to watch out for is right inside here where the arm comes down in this arc. Oh, there it is. You can see on mine some silver in there. It's where this camera doesn't do it justice, but kind of right in there. Focus? Maybe not. But when you're putting this together, just be mindful to watch in here underneath this bell crank. If you shim it too far down, you may run into either the button head or the bell crank back area rubbing there. You could just use a 1/4 inch Dremel drum or a 3/8, whatever you got, and just sand away at it, grind away some at it to just clear it. I did it to mine, and there's so much material down there. There's no problem. You're not going to weaken it. You're not going to tweak it. But and then the only other thing is when you do assemble it, I have about 4 millimeter shim on my drag link. And the only reason I have that is because when you go full lock right, the ball stud on the left side stands a chance of binding up on your drag link. So just be mindful once you build yours and you go full lock to full lock, just be sure that the ball ends don't interfere with your drag link. Everything moves freely and you can go full lock on them. That's for the steering. That's like the most that's Well, for the whole thing, that's about the most difficult part of the whole thing. It's just making sure you have everything clearance there so that it works together smoothly. And then was the shock towers. I mean, let me do this real quick here. The one thing I will say is to use the steering, you have to use my chassis. You can't use the stock the servo mount, the kit servo mount on my chassis, unfortunately. I looked how I could possibly leave the holes for the Mi9, but they were just a little off center compared to the Destinies, and they collided. So you have to use the Destiny mount, and then it just sits right in there. I'm not going to screw this in, but it just sits right in there. You can try the stock holes. These two holes right here for the dual bell crank are there. I left those in. Looking at this, I don't see the possibility of a clearance problem. So you could try running this servo mount and running the dual bell crank if you like that, but you want the other options that the car offers, or you can try that and be sure it clears, and then try the dual bell crank. So you kind of get, one weekend you do single, and the next weekend you put the dual, you change the bell crank over, and you can test and tune and compare the car that way for yourself. It doesn't look like there'd be any problems with it. If you I'll get into that after. So then the shocks was how low can I go, pretty much. There's a lot of room underneath these arms. Once everything's together and whatnot, you could probably drop these shocks even 6 millimeters to almost 8 millimeters. It's excessive. I don't think it's needed. I don't think it's necessary. It would definitely affect, I think, anything more than 6 millimeters, anything more than 4 or 5, I think. A lot changes when you're dropping these shocks. That from like even my design, my level, and just the average Joe that goes to the track. There's a lot that goes into effect. And when I was designing this and I started making the parts and have my prototypes together, I sent pictures to one of the Schumacher guys, and I talked with them briefly, and he thankfully gave me the comments, the feedback he gave me in comments actually helped out, I think, maybe more than he thought. It really led me to look at a few different things that I wasn't aware of, and one of them being what happens when you, even if you keep that shock angle and just bring that, keep the shock angle and you bring it down, what it affects and what it changes. I understand shock efficiency. I understand how all that works into the play and whatnot, and how spring rates, work, and the basics of that stuff. But then you get into, other areas on changes that you make and how they affect other things. Thankfully, he gave me some feedback that led me to correct a few possible mistakes I was about to make. But the sway bar, the shock mount pieces are these plastic pieces underneath. These are from the ARC A10, the 2025 car. This camera doesn't focus. There they are. They mount their shocks underneath the arms, and I owned one of their cars, so I knew what I was going to do as far as parts. This let me lower the shocks just a little bit over 4 millimeter. I know we've heard that 4 millimeter number before. and kind of had, you know, mixed internet comments about it. But that's what I got them down to as far as the arms. From we went from mounting them in the middle of the arm on the kit pieces. Now we're mounting them 4 millimeters lower. So now drawing up the shock towers for them. The shock towers are now 4 millimeters lower as well. So, you know, everything came down, and then from comments that, from the feedback that I got from the Schumacher driver, led me into explore which the shock angles and trying to imitate the wheel rates that like a stock kit had. So, and you know, the roll numbers and all that stuff. What I came up with was on my shock towers, they have 3 holes now, and the angles are relatively similar to what the stock kit is. I was glad that I got led down that road, and I was glad that I went with 3 holes for an option. And it was not that I think many people are going to see traction like we had at Nationals. It was, I won't say that it, I'll say that it surprised a lot of people. It was very, very hot. Your feet would stick to the carpet, and the carpet was only like two months old. And everybody's like, "Oh, CRC second generation black carpet, no grip." Oh no, you'd lose a shoe if your laces weren't tied. That's how much it was sticky. But what was interesting was Saturday night after all qualifiers, we had open practice before the mains on Sunday, and I just threw a Hail Mary. I had nothing to lose. I laid my shocks front and rear on the bottom holes, and the car was incredible. Not like A-Main incredible, it woke up all of a sudden, but I struggled to get low 10-second laps, and this was, I went to a 2.427 front spring with a 2.528 rear spring, both laid down to the bottom holes, and the car was just on rails. I got a couple 10.2s, I got 10.3s. I couldn't see those. I hadn't seen those all week long while I was there. I was like, holy shit. So, it surprised me, and I learned a lot from that. So I was happy that I tried it. I ended up, that night I set the car back to a 2.528 front and rear because I anticipated them vacuuming the track in the morning, and I wanted to take some front edge away, but edginess on myself away. But it shocked me what effect it had. So I was glad with this that I have the 3 holes. You can see them probably up in there. You know, 3 mounting holes now versus the 2 that we get with the kit. All the rear towers are going to be for horizontal mounts. If you want to run vertical mount still, same as the other towers we sell, you can keep your kit camber plates on there. No interference. Run our shock tower on the back, keep the shocks where they're at, run the vertical mounts. There's no interference. The front shock tower is one piece. I'm not going to make splits like the kit. If you want a split tower, just cut it. I'm not going to take the material to make 2 different types of shock mounts, and everyone I've sold a single tower to on the front has told me that they're not going back to the splits. They just like the feeling of it. So I'm not gonna make them for that. Just cut them. Everything will be available separate. You're not gonna have to buy a new kit or message me like, hey, can I get another shock tower? Front tower separately, rear tower separately, even the suspension arms. Front's in a pair, rear's in a pair, so if you break something, you can get it replaced. You know, you can buy a replacement, or if you just want spares, you can buy replacements, things like that. And then, so the suspension arms, lowering the shocks was, it was a kick in the nuts on how I had to figure this one out. Lowering the shocks, really, I mean, you're putting the springs into the arms now. So it was really figuring out how I was going to cut all this and design it and whatnot. I went through quite a few prototype G10 pieces before I landed on what I have. And it's the same 3mm material that I use on everything else. I've used the same supplier for almost 11 years that I've been cutting carbon. I have zero doubts in any of my carbon material. So the arms, all the droop screws are in the same kit location. Whatever droop you were running on your existing car, you can set and run on this car. So the droop screws are in the same spot. The sway bar mounts from Destiny, they mount just like our pivot balls do, with an O-ring on the top. I will say, get some spares on the Destiny sway bar links, on the plastic cups, on the metal. Let's see here, that gold looking metal piece. How's that? Is that focused? Nope. Oh, there you go. That metal piece, the little plastic link around it, and the cup that goes in the arm. Get some spares on those. There's no grub screws on these, and what I found, I didn't find it until after I started running the car. If you enter a corner full lock and you don't run any shims under your hubs, you risk clipping the, if you clip the board, you'll flex the arm and then flex or flex the knuckle, which flexes the steering arm, and you risk clipping the top of the sway bar mount, which is on the inside right here. It doesn't bend it. It doesn't bend anything. You see that little bump coming up right there. You'll either blow the O-ring off, or you'll break the plastic that the O-ring falls off, and then that piece will just drop out. You could, if you're brave enough, you could put a little dab of CA to kind of hold it there before you put everything else together, let it cure good. But it'll drop out and it's gone on the track. I went through 4 of them before I figured out what to do with my shims. I put a 1/2 mil shim in the front under the hub, and then put a 1/2 mil in the rear just to balance everything out. And I didn't drop anymore. I obviously didn't stop hitting stuff, but I didn't lose any more sway bar pieces. I didn't break them. So that's one note. Definitely run at least a 1/2 mil shim underneath the hubs. The bars themselves, Destiny bars, they make 1.2 and 1.3. One of the other comments that was said to me by the Schumacher driver was that this bar design may feel stiffer, and I did assume that was going to happen. I did kind of think ahead, and the other reason I went with this was because the Mugen bars are very similar, and I had some here to kind of test them out too. So the nice part is the Mugen bars are pretty much identical to the Destinies. Here's a Destiny. Can't really see it on my video. There's a Destiny bar. Looks crooked, but it's not. Here's a Mugen bar. Put it up in the red. Destiny only makes the thinnest of 1.2, so I wanted to have options. And with the Mugens, they do 1.0, 1.05, 1.1, 1.15, 1.2. And I know that these bars would feel different than the Schumacher, whole design and leverage and all that, you know, on the bar. But the Mugen ones will fit with a slight mod to them. Nothing extravagant or crazy, I'll say. You just need to decrease the angle of this slightly. The Mugen bars, these are already fitted. They stick out a little bit farther, so you need to just bring them in and match them to the Destinies. So all I did was took a pair of pliers, mount it on the long side, and just put this on my tuning board and just give it a quick flex. And then place it over the top of, you know, match it up to a Destiny and just give each end a little tweak. If I can get these to fit right. Until they matched. And if you don't do this and you put these bars on the chassis, the Mugens, you'll notice that the link ends are pushed outwards. There's pressure on them. They're not free. They'll still move up and down free. But these ball ends that they go into are going to be pressed out, and there's going to be pressure on them. But once you bend them up and match them, they fit and they work good on that. Put that away. So that's some short words on the sway bar links to keep in mind. The other thing with the arms, some of you have used or seen how on like other cars I've done like braced arms, kind of stiffen the arms up to give you a little tuning option and a tuning feel. So what I did with these arms is I built in the ability to make them unbraced, without having to buy, you know, another set of arms and whatnot. So on this design, you can see this oval pill shape here, and then you see this piece right. Let's do this. There we go. Right here, going up. The front. That was the front. This is the rear. You know, it's like right here is what's bracing it. It's just strengthening out here to keep it from flexing. If you want to loosen the arms up a little bit more, add a little bit more flex into the arms, you could just take a Dremel and cut that. Just cut a slot. You don't have to cut the whole thing out, just like you used to do top decks. Just cut a slot, so it breaks that piece apart, and it'll free that arm up a bit. You know, if you want to try it, you could do it on the set that you get with the kit, and then buy an extra set of arms that remain uncut, and then they'd be stiffer, so you'd have options. I didn't want to make one set of arms that was one way and another set the other way, because it's just making parts and using material. What else did I do on this? Alright, and then the chassis. So I know the big push is on steel. I'm opinionated on that. I don't disagree with steel, but I'm opinionated on the need for it. I understand the desire for it. The other push is like 1.5 millimeter aluminum chassis, and after all that I've seen of those become tacos, I know I'm not gonna make any for it. They just been too easy. So this is obviously 70-75 alloy. That's all I cut for any of my chassis. This version is going to be 1.8 millimeter thick, but you will need special screws. Not the 110 degree heads like X-ray sells for their thin chassis. These screws are the KM Motorsport ultra low profile 3 millimeter. So this screw right here is a 2.5 millimeter for the sway bar mount. The screws in the bulkheads up here, those are the ultra low profile heads. I got sent some to look at for a Mugen project I was working on with KM Motorsports, and I got those, and I was like, okay, I got to use these. I know what I'm going to use them in. They're a 4mm head, which and a 3mm screw, and just lower profile, so I don't have to countersink as deep, pull material out. I can leave more material in for that head to not pull through, and these are black spring steel. So like I said, I've 2 months I've been running on these. I've had 0 failure out of them, and they're cheap. I know for the X-ray ones you could spend like upwards of $100 to outfit a car just in screws. KM Motorsports has them 5, 6, 8, 10, 12mm lengths. Packs of 20, I think they're like $8 to $10 for a pack. So I think it's probably, I used 6s on the bulkheads and the servo and the motor plate, and I used 8 on my arms because of the shims. So even buying their screws, it's about $30 in hardware, and you have extras. The other thing I will say is those screws come in handy when you go to mount the shock mounts on the arms, if you use the screws inside. So I used them so that they're low profile and they clear any steering linkage, so they wouldn't hit and snap a link if you clip a corner. I didn't do the center flex that we've done in pretty much everything. I wish I could have. I did try it. I've tried it in some thinner chassis. The downfall, the push on the thinner chassis is to gain the flex, and you do lower the CG because you are lowering everything, but the flex is the real benefit. The center flex, really, once you got the car set up, the center flex really was beneficial in the spec classes, the stock classes, because it really freed up the car to let it do its thing. But unfortunately with the thinner chassis, it also makes it a paperclip. So going with the 1.8 and the other thin chassis, I tried it, but I just didn't feel comfortable with it, so we took it out for this one. That's why this doesn't have it. These spur pockets are a little bit different, and I put the pill pocket here, pill shape there, just to tune with the flex of it. When you get the kit, you're gonna get, from me, will be the chassis. It'll be a pair of front arms, a pair of rear arms, and then the front shock tower, the rear shock tower, and the carbon fiber battery hooks, because my chassis are narrower than the kit chassis to begin with. So you'll get the battery hooks like you do with all my other Schumacher chassis. The parts you'll need, there will be a parts list on the product page that will list the brand, the part number, and the quantity that you need. The Destiny stuff, the ARC pieces, which I think is you can, for the sway bars, you can use the ARC sway bar stops, the lockout pieces right here, or you can use the Destinies, depending on where you're ordering it from. Like I said, the Schumachers won't fit because they're bigger because of the bearings. Unless you have, a good drill press set up in a jig or vise or whatnot and feel comfortable drilling it out, I don't recommend it to fit the Schumacher ones. Probably some odd size, and whether or not you get it straight is going to affect how the bar works. So the Destiny ones obviously will work. The ARC ones work as well. So when you're sourcing the part numbers are there. The Destiny parts, I recommend Dumper Speed Shop. No affiliation, shameless plug for them. Whoops, sorry, Dumper. The Winds have been in this hobby for, everybody knows the Winds. They're in the sport because the passion of it. They love the hobby. So I always recommend Destiny stuff going to Dumper. I know you overseas guys. You may order from them. I don't know, but I know you have like Zen Racing. You got I don't know if Monaco does Destiny stuff, or even if Tony Sport does. But you have your options. I mean, everybody, you can source it from wherever you want. Throw the part numbers in Google and order it that way. But I recommend Dumpers for the Destiny stuff. He's always got it there, and he ships out really quick. And he's got good communications for when he's out traveling to the races. The ARC stuff, I use two places. I use Hobby Square, which I think is out of Michigan or something. It's out Midwest. They have a great ARC lineup. They do pretty much all of the ARC stuff. And then I also use TQ Racing out of Cali. So both are priced reasonably. They're not gouging you. ARC stuff has always been friendly on the racer pocket. So you can always, their inventories between the two are kind of, you may end up finding half of them here and half of them there. I'm not 100% sure. But that's who I recommend. That's who I use, and I would recommend. The Schumacher stuff, stateside we have Discount RC, which is great, and then and I've even used Schumacher Direct, so you could go with them, and even coming to the States, it's like 3-4 days. I get the stuff. Excuse me, long week at work, the real job. But that's who I use. Again, all the part numbers for the parts that you're gonna need will be listed on the site. If you want to kind of do it in stages, then I recommend getting the steering pieces first, the Destiny servo mount, the front wheel drive, bell crank, and the steering post, short steering post that's listed. You don't need, you can set up just the steering and use all your other kit stuff. All of the suspension mount holes on this car for the arms are in the kit location. Your stock arms will bolt right on. Then you could use your bulkhead mount sway bars, the existing shock mounts, and kind of just test the steering aspect of it first. Or if you just if you're budget minded and just going one direction, do the steering first. If you want to try the chassis mount sway bars, or you want to try the lowered shocks, unfortunately once you get to that point you have to use everything. So if you just want the lowered shocks, you're going to have to do the steering anyway, and then you have to do the sway bars. The sway bar setup needs the new arms that I make, and the lower and to use, when you use the lower arms, you need to use the shock towers to lower the shocks that I make. So outside of the steering setup, you have to use what comes in the kit to run the car. But if you're just want to do it one aspect once and try it, you got to do this. You at least do the steering first, then you'll be able to at least run the car and not be tied up for a race weekend with nothing. You don't have to do the shock arms, the shocks, and the sway bars right away. You could wait for parts or whatnot and get out on the track with it. Chassis, I will not be doing these in carbon fiber. The screws that you have to use, I'm not going to. Carbon fiber would be a 2 mil, and I'm not going to change the tooling up to run the 110 degrees on the, or run, standard screw on a 2 mil. Really not going to benefit on the chassis. The ultra low profile screws, they don't recommend them for carbon fiber. I wouldn't recommend them from carbon fiber. I know guys have run them, and I know other guys that have pulled them through the material. You'll split the laminations easily. So I won't be doing a carbon fiber kit. If you want a carbon fiber, honestly, get a hold of me and I'll cut you whatever you want. I'll cut balsa wood, but I won't warranty it. You pull a screw, unfortunately you're on your own. I warranty faults, not driver errors. So same thing goes with a 1.5 chassis. If you want a 1.5 millimeter chassis up for this car, I will make it, I will cut it, but it's going to be a separate charge. I'm not going to cut two versions and then piece kits together or strip kits to make one. If you want this kit but you want a 1.5 chassis, really the only way I'm going to do it is the 1.5 is going to be an additional chassis price. It's different countersinks, tooling, and whatnot, so it's more time on my end and more material. So the option's there. It's up to you. You decide. Release time. I'm giving myself 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks. It's not the 2-week joke that we all know, but April 2nd. April 2nd, I will have these live to be ordered on the web store. I already have the product page made. I just have to take the photos and edit and post them, and then it'll be live to look at. The aluminum on these, the backstory, I don't know, many know it. I'm encroaching an hour here, yikes. I don't work at a machine shop. I don't have access to these $100,000, $1 million machines. So I'm not pumping, I'm not chopping, 6 chassis a day, 12 chassis a day. I don't have the ability to just keep, stamping these chassis plates out. Carbon fiber, I can cut that easily. Like I've got the carbon cut for 6 kits. It's actually on top of my machine. I just have to pull them and clean them. So the carbon is easy. I know how to cut carbon. Been doing that 11 years. So the aluminum takes me time. With working the full-time job, come home, pets, family, dinner, boom, down here, do work. Honestly, to cut 3 of these, because the sheets, I can get 3 in the sheet. To cut 3 of these takes me 2 nights. I was saying 2 days, but it's 2 nights. So, all the screw holes, mill all the pockets, mill the motor pockets, cut them out, and then it's countersinking and cleaning. So 2 nights to just get them off the machine, to get another sheet down and start cutting again. And then I still have the post process of it. So the way I'm going to do these is the first 3 that get cut, I already have the carbon for it. Those will get, once those are cleaned and countersunk and ready to go, packaged, boom, April 2nd, they're live on the site. It's first come, first serve. I don't hold them, I don't back sale them, I'm not on the back side selling them out from what's in inventory. If it's in inventory, it's live, and that's for any product that I have on there. But when those 3 chassis come off the machine and are ready for countersinking and cleaning, another sheet is going down and it's being cut. So I'm not waiting for those 3 to sell before I start cutting more, but there's going to be an overlap. There's going to be a delay. If those 3 sell out in 4 days, then it's going to take me 2 to 3 days or longer if it falls into a weekend to get 3 more back into inventory. So just be aware of that. I'm not going to cut a dozen of them because we're all human, and human nature is, oh, there's plenty, I'll just wait. And then you forget, and when you do come back, they're gone. Or I'm sitting on all of these and I've focused all my time into making those that I backlog myself on other things. So one sheet goes down, it gets cut, takes me a couple days. While I'm cleaning and doing that, the next sheet is already in the process of being cut. So it's a rotation, you know, kind of in and out. But I don't hold them. You want it, it's on the site. Buy it, or you know, come back when you can. Whatever the deal is, I'm not gonna back sale them. It's just not fair to people. Excuse me. I think that's about it that I really have for it. I'm excited for the kit. The car has been great for me. I've had zero regrets or failures with any of it, and it hasn't changed from the prototype that I first ran with the steering to what I'm selling now. It's what I've been running, and you know, I'm up there. Do I think it's needed? Honestly, you know, no. I'm not gonna. I'm not the type of person that says like you need this to go fast. No, you don't. This is something that I feel takes what you have and brings it to another level. Just like anything that I make, I'm not about making what's already there. I'm about making something that takes something to the next level of it. So, you know, for me, I chase the X-rays at 360, and I got with my main car, and I got my main car up to running with the X-rays, and then I brought this together, and now I'm past the X-rays, and I'm chasing the Awesomatics. Some of them I could kind of hang with. I mean, there's no slouch of talent down at 360. These guys are angry for wins. They push everybody, which is great, and that's what racing's about. But I feel like I'm closer to them now, and just the changes that I made with this car helped me get to that level. That's what I mean by it. Drivers find themselves like, I can't break out of this rut, can't break out of this rut, can't break, and it's not even, it's like I've tried, you know, everything from no shims to every shim in the hobby shop and all the oils, and I just can't get out of this rut. And then just something comes along where they're like, this fits me, and now they're, you know, up on the next step. So is it needed? No. The car is fantastic from the get-go. I have no affiliation with Schumacher. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I can drive anything that I choose to as far as the cars go. I prefer their product for me because their product fits me. So I try to keep that into what I make. I'm not going to guarantee a win, but it make it a little bit easier for you. It's definitely the next level for it. I think that's about it. I'm at 53 minutes. I wanted to try to keep this shorter, but there's a lot to explain on this car. I'm always reachable through Facebook. You can grab me through Messenger on the Crazed Builds page. You can email me, crazedbuilds@yahoo.com. Any questions or comments, and when this goes to even YouTube, you can post comments there. Like and subscribe. It's not to monetize. I'm not monetizing my YouTube. I think I have like 70 followers. It's not to monetize it. It's just I try to do videos more, and if there's anything more that progresses on this car, I definitely will do a video. So like and subscribe, and you can get notified if I come out with another video. Share it so other people see it out there as well. I appreciate everyone who does share my Facebook stuff, the YouTube videos, just getting the word out. Like I said, been doing this for long enough, and I'm always appreciative of the support everyone gives me. So I think that's about all I have for this kit. Like I said, April 2nd they'll be live on the site, so you can get them there. I do ship internationally, so international guys can still get them. And yeah, any questions or comments, post them in the video, or posting them. You post them in the video. I will try to look at it more often. I don't pay attention to the analytics, so it doesn't pop up on my phone. But you can always grab me Facebook Messenger through Crazed, and I'll get back to you either on my lunch hour or after work while I'm down here. But yeah, I think that's definitely about it now. 55 minutes, so I got like 4 and change to spare. Thank you again to everyone. I definitely appreciate it, and it keeps me going. Hope to see some more of you guys this summer. Try to get out to some asphalt for myself, but we'll see how that works out. Until then, have a good night. Be good. Stay safe.